Well, hey friends, in this video, we're going to be talking about how I read as a pastor. Just to give you a glimpse on how I work, I am fascinated by seeing other people's processes. So I figured, I don't see this a lot, especially from other preachers and pastors. So I figured I'd just do the content that I would love to see more of. I operate really well with goals. If I have a goal on a whole year and I can break that down into a daily habit, then I am feeling pretty good about my work and I'm able to stay focused and stay motivated. And so my 2022 reading goal on a Monday through Friday basis, this is kind of how I broke it down. My goal is to read 25 pages of a book a day. That's outside of Bible reading, but it includes sermon research for future series, and it also includes book reading at home. And so we'll dig into all of the aspects of how I read as a pastor, but my goal is to read 25 pages a day, Monday through Friday. Does that happen every day? No, it doesn't. But that's my goal. That's my hope. And so far this year, this January 31st, when I'm recording this, I've read more this year and this month than I did read last year in January. So we're off to a good track, off to a good start. And so that's my reading goal. Okay, let me give you a glimpse on the things I read. So we'll first start off with the good old Bible. I recently got this ESV wide margin, Cambridge wide margin Bible. And what I like about it is it has room in the margins that I can write in and keep track. I also added my 5-day Bible reading plan, which you can get at 5daybiblereading.com or something like that. I'll leave it in the description below. But I added that in the back of my Cambridge wide margin. I like it. It's really good. It allows me to take notes and mark up my Bible, which if you're new to that, then give it a shot. There's a ton of stuff out there on how people do it, their process, their color code, and how they, process different things. It's kind of similar to an inductive study methodology, but it's not so full-fledged in the inductive way, at least the way I do it. So that's going to be in the morning times, either in my office here at home before I go into the church office early in the morning between 5 and 7, or it's going to be once I get into the church office around 8:30 a.m. I'll start with that, and I'll just be in the Word. For most of the month of January, I was in the Psalms, just walking slowly through it, and then I recently started this 5-day Bible reading plan, which I've done before. Started it with a group of guys at the church. We're starting discipleship groups, and that's going to be our plan. So I'm starting that actually today and digging in. So devotional Bible reading, obviously really important, but sometimes it's something for us as pastors. If we don't make time for it, it may just get lost in the shuffle. For my deep dive Bible reading, which is usually associated with sermon prep, I use Logos Bible software, and I've really enjoyed it. Now, when I first got Logos, when I first got it, I was in it too long. I was researching far too long and not spending enough time reflecting on the text and processing that illustrations, application. And so my time reflecting on how does this apply to us was diminished because I was spending so much time with commentaries and original language and all that, just digging in. Now, I'm not against it. I'm really for it, but there needs to be a balance because we also need to be reflecting and praying and meditating on the text in order for us to be able to preach to the heart, because let's face it, commentaries are typically written by scholars in a scholarly way. You're not going to take their insights and automatically just plug and play. Sometimes, and that's really great, but most of the time, we've got to still process that through the lens of what do our people need to hear and what would make sense to them on their level. Now, before I got Logos, because it is expensive, I advocated for, I found a bunch of free resources online. One of them that's really helpful is called Precept Austin. If you just Google that, you'll find their website, Precept Austin. And I actually have an article linked below in the description that goes into like 7 different online Bible resources that are free. So if you're like, Brandon, that's nice, you use Logos, well, and I'm like, I don't have the money, I get it. I totally get it. And for years, that's what I did as well. So check that out in the description below, and you'll be able to see all those free resources that don't require you to obviously fork over thousands of dollars for Bible software. Hey, before we jump into the rest of the video, I just want to let you know about something free that I want to give you just as a way of saying thanks for getting to this point in the video. It's called my 10-step guide to writing a sticky sermon. It's a free download. Just go to preachandlead.com/guide to get your free 10-step guide to writing a sticky sermon. My vision for that is to give you a nice checklist and some insights onto how to write memorable sermons each and every week. So go to preachandlead.com/guide and grab your free 10-step guide to writing a sticky sermon today. Now, the next way I read as a pastor is for future sermon series that are in the future. They're coming up. And one of the ones that I've been digging into quite a bit is one I'm now in, but I'm still researching for it as we speak. But I've taken a number of books that I found on these topics that I'm digging into. This series is on all kinds of hot button issues, and I'm spending some time delving into it. You know, things like sexuality and politics and deconstruction and race and gender and science and all those things. So I saw it necessary to do some deep forward research on it, and so I'm still in it. But there are going to be sermon series that this is something I do. There are going to be sermon series that I don't do as much future series research that is devoted around a certain topic or angle. But in this one, I did. So for that, I've got a couple examples. This is a book called Sex for Christians. Really good, especially if you want to preach on the topic. It will give you a good basis for building a theology of sex and a sexual ethic from a Christian perspective. So definitely that's been good. This is one I'm in right now as well, Politics After Christendom, because as I said, I'm going to be talking about politics very soon. So this is kind of a hybrid of sermon series research while you're in a sermon series and future, because I started it months ahead, but I've just been reading a ton. So those are a couple of examples of what it would look like to do some future sermon series research. In order to find books for a different theme and various topics, I depend on the recommendations of others quite a bit. So I'll look at book lists and top books for this subject, and I'll definitely obviously look back at the things I've already read, but I definitely advocate for getting recommendations for the books that you read so that you don't start books and not finish them because they're subpar. That's a travesty. I don't want to do that very often, and thankfully, because of the system that I use and making sure that I'm getting these from recommended people, people recommending that I respect and value their opinion, it usually results in me enjoying the books and them being valuable. Another way I read is on my laptop, my MacBook Pro. I have an RSS reader that I check on a mostly daily, but at least weekly basis. And I've got blogs and writers and websites that I follow on there, and I can see all of them in one place and see any headlines that make sense or that I want to look into. And it's just more ongoing learning, ongoing research, ongoing processing of different things. It's not necessarily around a certain topic that I'm like digging into, but I'm just seeing what people are talking about and learning from them. RSS readers are still alive and well, and I still highly recommend them. So if you haven't been using them, maybe you used one in the past, I recommend it. I use InnoReader, and it's been good. It's free, and I like free. Additionally, as I'm reading articles, I will, if I find something that I think I could use in the future sermon or future research or project, I will use the Evernote article clipper. I'll use the Evernote Web Clipper, that's what it's called, and I'll put that into my Evernote, tag it appropriately, put it in the right notebook, whether it's a quote or illustration or research or something like that. I'll put it in there, some statistics, what have you. And then for things I want to revisit and really make sure that I read it again or even recommend it to other people, I use Pocket. the app called Pocket. And both of these just have those little applications that go on your browser, and you can click the button and it goes right in there, and it's magic and it's awesome and it's really helpful. So just like every other preacher who's preaching many Sundays a year, we got regular sermon series research, which always involves the deep dive in the Bible on Logos Bible software and just processing it in my journals and taking notes and processing, meditating on it and thinking about how this applies to our people and what God is saying. So that's most every week I'm in some week-to-week sermon series research where I'm exegeting the text, and I'm either using my regular Bible and just taking notes. That's what I usually do at first, and then I'll jump into Logos and see what other people are saying, look at the original languages, make sure that the conclusions I've came to or the applications I've come to aren't heresy. That's important. Don't be a heretic. Another way I read is it's kind of like a miscellaneous ministry catch-all. It includes theology, leadership, ministry craft. So maybe it's a preaching book or small groups or discipleship or general life book, something about life in general. One of the examples I've got right here is one it's on my stack. I've not started it yet. It's called The Care of Souls, Cultivating a Pastor's Heart. I've heard a lot of good things on it. It's multi-award winning. So for whatever that counts in your, metric of deciding what to read, I think it's going to be valuable. I'm looking forward to it. As many pastors, in the last 2 years, it's been a struggle sometimes to always have that pastoral heart and to truly care for the sheep and not just get frustrated with the sheep. So I'm looking forward to reading that. And so that's another just area of things that I read. And depending on what I'm doing with future series research, or if I'm in the depths of a very in-depth sermon series at the time, like I am now, then that's going to be a little bit lesser of an emphasis, but it just depends on the season. At home reading, when I'm not fully focused on something that has to do with the church, I like to read widely. So whether that be fiction or biographies or historical things or just random memoirs or whatever, I just am open to reading a lot of different things. One of the book I'm reading currently at home is called American Nations: A History of the 11 Rival Regional Cultures of North America. It's interesting. It's really interesting. It's a history book, and depending on if that floats your boat or not, you might want to check it out. Kind of gives some language to why different regions think and act the way they do. And sometimes, you go to a different place if you're in America, you go to a different place in America or even Canada, because it covers that a lot as well. Different people in different places think different ways, and it kind of gives a little bit of language on why that is. Just something I find interesting. Another thing that I'll occasionally do is I'll grab my phone and I'll open up the Libby app. And the Libby app is a really great resource if you have a library card, at least in the U.S. I don't know if they're in other countries, but the Libby app allows me to download and listen to audiobooks. It does Kindle and things like that, but as you can see, I'm usually in a paper reading mode. But on the occasion that I know I'm going to be driving a lot more, or I'm just in the mood for just listening, kind of passive learning, then I'll jump into an audiobook, and Libby has a decent selection depending on your library, because it's based on your local library's offerings and what they have. So it's free, and I like that a lot. As you can tell, there's been multiple times I've said I like free. So the Libby app is something I highly recommend if you are able to access it, which means, I don't know, if you're in the country of the U.S., look it up. For those of you who are not in the U.S., let me know in a comment, and let me know if you guys have the Libby app. That'd be cool if you do. Okay, so let's talk about how we remember what it is that we read, because it's important not just to read books just for the sake of reading books, but to actually learn something. So when I'm reading a book, I will mark it up, either highlight or I will underline, And then when I'm reading something, I really want to make sure that I'm remembering what it is saying. I will take notes either in a journal or on my computer in Evernote. And if I write in a journal, if I write those quotes or just an insight that I got from it, if I write it down in a journal, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to scan that. When I'm done with it, I'm going to scan it into Evernote so that I have a digital access point. And the great thing about Evernote is it can read handwriting, even mine. And it's, I think my handwriting's decent. I don't know. So typically I'm keeping track of these things, and this is really helpful when it comes to sermon series research week to week, because then you can look back on your quotes that are related to certain topics, and you can see what it is that you read, what stuck out to you, and you can see what they had to say about that topic. And I already mentioned before what my reading goal is for each day. But what I use to track my reading, my progress, and depending on the season, I'll record the amount of pages that I read in a day and put it into GoodReads instead of just keeping track of it myself. But I'll use GoodReads typically to keep track of the books I've read, the books I'm going to read, the books I'm reading currently. And so I think GoodReads is a really valuable tool. I know there's other apps, and I've heard a lot of things about ReadWise, and I'm not sure exactly what it's about, but GoodReads has been helpful to me, and just at least kind of keeping track of the high level, what did I read, and that's it. What did I read? And I keep track of it. It's helpful. So I'm curious, what are your reading habits like? How do you read as a pastor? Leave a comment below in YouTube, or go and make your own video and let me know that you made it so I could watch it. I would love to see how you read as a pastor and what that looks like for you in a daily, weekly, monthly situation. Would love to hear from you. So let me know. Let's see it. Either leave a comment or make a video. It'd be great. Hey, if you thought this video was helpful and insightful, then you might find this video of interest as well. It's a video where I do some sermon prep, invite you into the process of me doing some sermon prep. So go right here and check out that video. I'll see you there.